there! Today I have David McDowell with me, who has been doing some acting for 2 years, and I really love acting. I love all forms of art, and when I was very young, I wanted to get into acting. I was very excited about it, but I never went down that route, and I know it can be really challenging and really fun at the same time. So today, I want to ask a bunch of questions. Of course, it all comes down to the words. So I want to focus a lot on words because this podcast is called Words Matter. And in that field, words do matter a lot. So I have so many questions for David today, and I really thank you for joining me.
Wow.
I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your experience. I know you love it, I know you love acting, and I know that you are looking to do a lot more acting and continue with this, probably for life, I'm guessing.
I hope so.
Yeah. So what have you done, and what type of acting do you like the most?
Well, it all started with going to an acting class and being inspired by the teacher and finding out that I really liked it. And from there it was, okay, what's the next class? Oh, how do I learn this? Oh, how do I learn that? Then you get an opportunity to have a role where you might say 5 words. And you're like, ooh, that was fun, because you're actually on set, whether it's your friend with a single camera or you're somewhere else that's got, 7 people in a crew. And it got into my soul more and more, and so I studied harder, kept training. I've had lots of great coaches. That's important. Your coaches need to inspire, but also not pat your back all day long. You need constructive criticism. You need to be able to take that and apply it. Yeah, I've met so many wonderful people in this journey, and I can't wait to see what it brings.
That's exciting. I love that you say constructive criticism, because those words are really important. Criticism has such a negative connotation, and everyone says, I don't like being criticized. I don't like hearing anything negative. But constructive criticism is very important in many professions, and I imagine, especially in acting. So when you have a coach, what do they touch on? Like, what do they work on or focus on? Do they kind of focus on every aspect of acting? Are they specifically talking about you and your skills, or do they work on that type or that particular script or play or piece that you're working on?
Challenging question. At first, it's just about presenting yourself as a human being. People want to act, but on camera and with microphones and professional equipment, if you have the right want or the right emotion, or just if you're in that space and you're feeling it, you yourself are feeling it. It's not a false emotion, and you say the words, the camera will see it.
Do you have a preference of a type of character that you like to play? Because there are people that get certain types of roles, and you are always kind of chosen for those roles, especially once that becomes your resume.
Yeah, typecasting is a thing. For those of us early in the career, it is actually good to know them. Know thyself. Because if you want to portray an authentic human, portray one that's close to what you are.
I agree.
Right? So if I look like a detective, I'm too old to be a street cop. Right, so putting me in officer's clothing, maybe it would play well. I guess I look all right for my age, but I'm more likely to be in a blazer as a detective, as a type. Put me in a vest and a tie, and I'm a teacher. And teaching is something that I know. I had an opportunity to do a film as a swim coach. I was a competitive swimmer from age like 6, 7, all the way through high school. I coached at the local pool. That's like in my soul. Even if I haven't done it for 20 years, I could walk out onto the side of a pool and automatically be a swim coach. I wouldn't have to work at that. I mean, it's work, but it would be something that comes natural to who I am and my lived experience. Whereas if you said, okay, go teach someone how to shot put, probably would not be a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're supposed to have the look, right? So you have to have the look, and then you have to have the voice, and you have an excellent voice. I think that really gives you an advantage.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so you are playing the role of a detective.
Yeah, I filmed in Tennessee just a week and a half ago as a detective.
And how'd that go?
It's great.
Is there anything surprising about it, or you didn't expect, you didn't see coming?
I don't like wearing suits and ties.
Okay.
So there's that. But, put me in one and I look like a detective. In my mind, I am someone who questions and troubleshoots all day long. That's just, my brain just does that. And so that would make a good detective, right? Someone who wants to find and get to the bottom of something. It's ingrained in who I am to think like that. If someone's not someone who questions, they might not make a good detective. Absolutely,
I agree. I feel like I've watched some movies where they had a police officer or a detective or private eye or something like that, where it wasn't believable.
Don't tell the casting director that. We love our casting directors. They're good at their jobs.
I see. That does raise some other questions. I really wanted to ask you about acting affecting your emotions and your actual real personality, your real character affecting your life. Have you felt personally affected when the cameras are not rolling?
So far, no. The Meisner technique that I'm learning is all about your vulnerability and finding the ways in which to put yourself in a specific emotional state, mentally, physically, and whatever, but also how to come back out from that. So getting yourself grounded when you're done. I mean, if you've done a happy scene and you've done a happy prep, go be happy.
Yeah, like keep it. You don't need to come out of that. Yeah.
But it's an actor's emotions. Those are our real emotions. We're becoming vulnerable with our emotions. So if I've done a scene where I've cried because I played the father who just found out that his daughter died, that's a really intense amount of preparation and exhaustion when you're really done with that scene. A particular one I did in class took quite a couple of days of different exercises before it wasn't part of in my brain and in my body, right? So I just kept working on all the different things that I do for grounding myself and do my daily, everyday tasks, the things that I need to do, the things that I need to get done, and finally it just, it wasn't there anymore, right? So David was David.
And like you said, you came out of that exhausted. I would feel exhausted after crying over losing a relative. I lost a relative, and I do know the feeling. Unfortunately, about a year ago, I lost my sister. And before that, I had always said, I can't imagine. I can't imagine how that feels. I can't imagine how that feels. And now I can imagine. I had a breakdown when I heard the news, so I can imagine it. But there are some scenes that I've heard where actors were traumatized. There was actually a scene from this woman who was she was a rising actress a long, long time ago, and she was becoming really famous, and she did this brutal scene, and she said after that she just couldn't do acting anymore. It was just, she was so traumatized by this scene.
We might be talking about a different film in such that there is another with Jodie Foster, The Accused.
Oh goodness, that movie traumatized me just watching it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just saw within the last couple of weeks some of the interviews and discussions about the behind the scenes from that some of the men were having to go run off set and vomit because of the actions that they were portraying, because they're not like that in real life, right? But to portray it that scene is visceral.
Yes.
And I would encourage folks to go and look up the interviews with Jodie Foster about that. She talks about, hopefully I restate it correctly, that she went home even though that was so hard and so challenging, and let's face it, it's not a nice thing, she would go home proud of the work that she did as an actor.
Wow.
That's a heck of a way to look at that and not carry that burden with you offset. But those are her real emotions, right? That, you know, there's no faking that stuff. I mean, it's Hollywood, so it's staged but the emotion is real from the actor.
I watched this movie and it was traumatic. I was really shaped by that, but also the words sat with me and impacted me because I remember some of the lines, you know, during the court trial when they were saying, just because you were dressed a certain way, or just because she has a promiscuous past, or just because she was drinking heavily. They were explaining these things, and the way that the writers wrote out the lines taught me a very valuable lesson and taught a lot of women, a lot of men and women learned a lot from that film and the writing. And that also brings me to another question, is about the writers.
Back to the words.
Yes, back to the words. Off of the traumatic scenes.
Words matter.
Yes, words matter. So the words matter not only for the actors, but also for the writers. And they are the original creators of the words for any TV show, any movie, any play. And I am curious, from your perspective as an actor, do you ever look at the script and you're like, I would have worded this differently, or I wish we could change the wording here?
I like to hope that most sets are going to be a collaborative environment, but you know, if you're the co-star that's supposed to say, "Would you like more cream in your coffee?" just say those words and get out of the way. You know, you're just there to, like, if it's a diner scene, to make the diner feel like a realistic diner, right? The other people at the table are the ones who are having the important moments. That doesn't mean the words don't matter. You just say them and go. But if it's easier for me to say a phrase in the way in which I can say it, especially just in the audition, and I'm respecting the story and not changing the story, I'm more likely to let myself just say it the way I feel like I would say that.
If somebody does slip up a little bit, but it doesn't change anything, and it's a slight change of wording, do they kind of just let it roll if it was a great scene?
Depends.
Okay.
Right? So some directors are gonna let the camera roll and see what happens. Others are gonna be, you need to be word perfect.
The viewers don't know. The viewers don't know the exact wording that was supposed to be said. So if it's just slightly off and it works and it conveys the same meaning and attitude and everything else is like, you know, fine, except for slight different wording, why not just let it roll?
If it comes out and it's authentic and you haven't changed the story, my view is, I hope that's a good take. If you're saying banana instead of orange, you probably need to get that word right.
Yeah, and I think that even if it doesn't mess up the storyline, sometimes it might throw off the other actor. So if you're expecting banana or you're expecting orange and they say banana, and then even if the producers and directors would be like, oh, whatever, you know, this is irrelevant, but you're like, wait, what? So it might stump you as the other actor.
Be prepared. Yes, and. You ever improv?
No, I have not. I want to try it. I want to try improv sometime.
Yeah, there's a yes and thing to improv, such that you're not shutting someone down. And you're not one-upping, but you're yes-anding.
I wanted to ask about the rehearsals that you do, whether it is a table reading or a full rehearsal. How much preparation do you do with other actors and maybe the director or the coach? How much do you do in practicing it first? And then during that time, who gives you direction and opinions and feedback about how something should be read? Like, do you have the discretion? Do you have a lot of discretion in how you're going to deliver your lines, and you just know, you know what, I know my character, I know the story, I know the storyline, I know the role, so I know how I'm supposed to be as a detective. Therefore, I can figure out how every line is delivered, and I trust my own judgment. Or do they, I don't want to say micromanage, but do they who, maybe the other actors or whoever is making this call, do you have people listen to you go through it a few times and tell you how you should change things, or if they feel like you're doing it wrong?
I hope there's not a wrong. So I'll answer your question in a completely different way, such that I'll touch on some of your notes. Going back to where I had the interview with the detective questioning the manager, we were filming that scene within 5 minutes of me having met that human being, right? So there was no rehearsal. The closest thing to rehearsal was okay, run it once for blocking, so that the director could see that everything was lining up. The camera folks knew where we were moving. Did we hit our marks for focus? All of that. And his note, the director's note to me as a detective was, on this show, our detectives are very stoic. So there's not really any flamboyance to the detectives on this particular show. So that's the note that I stick in the back of my head. So that just means exactly that. I'm not like an animated detective, right? Stoic, straight, to the point, ask the questions, thank you, get it done, go. And while we had scripted lines for that scene, we didn't have the lines for us greeting each other. We had to improv that. He said, here, this is your idea, say it, let it come out. And I can say for sure, if they were to look at, if it was 7 takes for all the different angles, I might have said it the same way 5 of those 7 times. And I mean such that the words might have been identical, but maybe even a little bit of the intonation was different. But in general, I was given the direction of stoic, right? So I wasn't trying to mince words or get crazy with it, just say them. There was no other reason for me to do anything but say the words. I'm asking questions. It's part of my want in the scene, is to ask this person questions and get the answers that I want. And so that is really all that needed to be driven to get me to do what I needed to do.
I was surprised when I learned how many classes and how many years of classes that some of the actors, famous actors today that are out there, how many years they did before being discovered.
It's luck. I don't know if you're discovered as much as you get lucky.
I'm glad you said that, because I used to think musicians and actors were discovered, and they had to have the luck to get discovered, but then they also had to have the talent and everything like that. But I thought, oh, somebody found them. But it makes me wonder how many people have not been discovered. How many?
There's a lot of great actors out there.
Absolutely.
For sure. So the training constantly, that's just part of being prepared. I don't know if tomorrow or 10 years from now I'm going to get some role that suddenly I can't go to the grocery store anymore without being recognized.
Right.
But if I have an opportunity for that role and I haven't been training and practicing and honing my craft, am I going to get that role?
Right.
It could hurt my chances.
Yeah.
So that constantly learning, constantly improving, growing, broadening my experiences, me as a person, exploring different emotions, all of that. When you talked about way earlier, what do I bring home? Do I bring home those emotions? Not necessarily, but I'm bringing home a greater understanding of humanity and human behavior and the ability to touch those emotions of my own and allow them to be seen. It's a little deep.
It is deep, and I love that. And you made me think of like 7 more questions, but I'm gonna just ask you one, which is, this seems like a huge jump. Again, I do that sometimes.
Jump.
I'm gonna jump.
Jump.
when you mentioned that, like if you tomorrow, you know, or a year from now, all of a sudden you get a role where if you can't go down and grab a cup of coffee without being recognized, let's imagine that happens. And I want to talk about, yes, I hope you do. I hope you do. I want to talk about like the cancel culture. Let's imagine that you suddenly become so famous that everyone's watching you and listening to you. And yeah, all eyes are on you, but also all ears are on you. So do you think that that would affect you as far as what you say, expressing your opinions, your thoughts, even just broaching certain types of topics? For example, really famous people in general, not just actors, but these days, really famous people have been brought under attack for things they said 20 years ago, sometimes blown out of proportion or misconstrued, and that's really scary and sad. But do you think that that would affect your words and actions if you wanted to keep that, keep acting and keep that reputation and that image?
I don't know if anyone can ever be prepared for that moment of how it affects their daily life. Because until it happens to you, how will you know how you would act?
Do you feel like you would be extra cautious with your words if you became famous?
I would have to be aware that people are listening. You know, I wouldn't want to be a jerk.
I don't think you're a jerk now.
I'm not. But anyone could take something the wrong way. You know, maybe you really are just trying to finish your cup of coffee by yourself, and you're being honest. I'd love to have a picture with you. May I finish my cup of coffee or something? Maybe I can't do that. Maybe I have to change my behavior and just let my cup of coffee get cold and take the picture. I don't know. The first thing I want to do is be prepared as an actor to get that luck. But then if I need to add a therapist into my life to help me navigate that, then so be it. Hopefully I have a strong partner that's going to be there along with me, and be a support when I need a support. If I need to go yell in a pillow, as long as I'm not doing it somewhere else, we're all human. I don't think there should be any point in denying that we're a human being, but I'm not sure what I would do with that influence in particular. Would I be quiet with a public face, or would I use it? I think I would do something potentially like Scarlett Johansson with Feeding America. That's been an important part of her life and the way she grew up and became an actor. Some of her upbringing influenced her into that. And now Feeding America is a big thing for her. I would hope that I could make a difference in the world in those kinds of ways. The Rock, if you've seen The Rock, what a nice man, right? He's always smiling. He understands that he is living the life.
Yeah. His attitude, I mean, his attitude is great.
It's top notch.
Yeah.
And so he embraces that beautifully. Doesn't mean he's a perfect human being, right. But I hope to shake his hand someday for sure.
Yeah, and again, back to words matter. These people, these famous people, have that platform where their words matter more than your average Joe, right? And they matter more because people listen to them more. Recently with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I was thinking her right now.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. I mean, words matter. And I just learned, I was shocked at first when she came out, and I loved how she wrote it. It was so eloquent what she wrote in her post, and saying that she supports Harris, and kind of add a little humor, a little touch. We could just analyze that post on its own. But when that came out, I was really glad that she did. I was really glad that she said what she said, and how, you know, it's up to you to do your own research and make your own choices. And then she ended by signing off as the crazy cat lady or whatever. And for Halloween, I am going to be a crazy cat lady because
you are.
Yes, my 3 nieces are dressing up as cats.
That's
so, yeah.
awesome.
They just
I'm
happen
a
to.
single cat dad.
Yes, you're a cat dad, and I'm a cat lady. So Taylor Swift used her words, and I was surprised because she seemed to be not saying anything, being silent, as you mentioned, and she didn't seem like she was going to come out. And I just recently learned the reason why she did is because AI was used to make fake words, create this, I believe it was an image or a video or something of it looking as if Taylor Swift was endorsing Trump. And she had not said that, and her words, I mean, AI, another topic that we could go into, but like now, AI can replicate us just by looking at this video. It can take our image and just create entirely new video of us
I'm glad
talking.
you called it replicate.
Yes, replicate.
Yeah, because it cannot replace us.
Yes. Well, AI cannot replace us, but it can seem to. It can seem.
It can appear.
Yeah. And in many ways, oh God, there are just so many things I want to talk about out of the last few statements alone. Replacing us. I know that there was a huge actors strike and writer strike. There was the writer strike in Hollywood. And a big part of that was that they didn't want writers and or actors being replaced with AI. I know that that was a big concern. It would be entirely genuine. It would not be authentic. All three of the famous people we just touched on, they handle it so well. So they do use their stage, their stage in this world for doing good. Trying to help others by feeding them, by keeping the mood great, by encouraging others to vote and do their research. And I think that a lot of celebrities do use their platform or their stage in the right way. And their words do have more influence on people in general, their decisions and their actions. If you could play any role or any type of character or any genre, what would you love to do the most? If you could just choose and you were going to be in a movie or a TV show where you could play any role.
Ooh, that's so wide open. Well, I like pirates. Pirates are quite cool.
I think it'd be a good pirate.
If,
I think you would be.
if I could be a pirate somewhere, that would be pretty awesome. There's a Blackbeard flag hanging on my front porch right now.
Very nice.
Yeah. I would be keen to explore characters. One of the greats is character actors is Johnny Depp, right? I mean, wow, some of the things he's done. And since we're talking about pirates, Captain Jack Sparrow sticks out.
Incredible.
That is not specifically. I mean, Johnny Depp is there, but there is a character there, and now absolutely iconic character that has been created by him in that world. I would love an opportunity to do something like that and to take something to some level so iconic. I mean, but was he 30, 40 years into his acting career by the time he had that opportunity?
Yeah.
I'm just a couple of years in, so
a
lot to go.
Yeah, anything that I can think of that was an iconic character, they were deep into their years of acting, right? They had become so well versed or so practiced and so comfortable just owning the role, really.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of confidence and vulnerability. He's like, he's got his whole thing going on with being Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're kind of smirking when I start doing that because I probably look hilarious, especially not in costume.
Well, he looks hilarious.
It's fantastic. But if you're in costume, on set, in the movie, with the music, and the whole production, everybody who makes that happen, there's a lot in the character work that Joaquin Phoenix has done with Joker. I could probably go on and on and on about the way that different actors have developed particular characters. Really, if I'm given an opportunity to embody a different human, I would love the challenge. there would be some of me in it for sure, because I'm me, and those emotions would be mine. But creating that character is part of telling that story.
Yeah. I wonder, you know, one of my thoughts earlier before we did this interview is like, well, this would never happen. But what if they said, you have to play a little girl? You know, like you're have to be, yeah. Of course that's not going to happen. But let's just say.
Maybe in a voiceover, but I don't even know if I have the voice for changing myself to a little girl.
I don't think you do.
No, probably not.
But let's say there was something very artistic. Let's just say that there is a role where you're supposed to be a grown man who thinks he's a young girl, something like that, and you dress up like a little girl and you act like it, and that was the role. Would that be difficult for you or fun for you? Or you like, how would you get into that? Would you just try to believe that you actually have that psychological disorder? Or
that would be very interesting. I'm not sure what kind of story could come from that. Maybe you've just given someone out there an idea for an interesting story. Maybe there is a mental patient that thinks he's a little girl. I don't know. But if, as an actor, you want to portray that as truthfully as possible. So here I am, especially if it's a big budget set, you could have 100 people standing around you. Cameras pointing, boom up, ready, whatever. And whether the person says action or okay, we're ready, start when you feel it. You gotta be there, you gotta do it. Do it.
yeah.
There's a little bit of something freeing in acting training with opening up that vulnerability that perhaps maybe other people don't get an opportunity to explore.
Absolutely. I like that you mentioned that. I feel like actors, more than anybody, actors get to experience different types of vulnerability and different situations in life, different emotions or different levels of emotion that no one else gets to experience, like such an array of different emotions and experiences in their line of work. So as far as work goes, you're not going to find, you know, when I was a professor, sure, I can talk about so many topics. There are so many topics we can discuss, but I was pretty limited on how I can behave and where I'm going to be and how I'm going to be feeling. So we have a role, you know, we have to put on a certain face and speak a certain way as educators, and actors you get to switch, and I really love that. And that's why I did want to play around with that a little bit in acting. I could never memorize all of the lines, even if it's just a few lines. I don't give myself enough credit to where I would memorize the lines well. If you had a role where you had to remember a lot of lines and you were just the lead role or lead character in a role, do you think that you would struggle to remember all of the lines, or do you have a pretty good memory?
I don't know if I have an excellent memory. Being owned. But when it comes to memorizing lines, I do it several ways. Read the whole thing out a few times. Only read my lines out loud, but quietly just reading the other characters' lines. Reading the scene heading, reading the action lines. All the words matter.
Yes, I do.
All the words matter. But then reading it again. Spend 5 minutes. Read it. How many times can I read it in 5 minutes? Okay. Put it away. The brain needs to rest as well. You can't just force it in there. At least not for me. Everybody's going to be different.
Right.
So then I come back maybe 2 hours later and I can do it again. Maybe this time I'll only read it like I'm reading a book. Maybe I'll read it all aloud. Sometimes there's an app that I'll use on my phone where I can record the lines of myself and the other person. Perhaps I'm doing an activity, something as simple as doing the dishes or cooking. I can have that playing, like almost like you're listening to music. How many words to songs do you know? but you might not be able to sing them now, but if the song comes on, they pop right out of your head, right?
Wow, yeah.
So if I'm referencing like when I was the detective and the other fellow was the manager, right? We had our improv lines to get us going, and then we got to the scripted lines. I know what he's going to say because it was written in the script, but it's about listening and responding, right? I don't want it to be robotic. Nobody wants it to be robotic. If it's robotic, do we look like human beings?
Right.
Right. So I'm glad that part of the technique that I'm learning is about listening and responding. Acting is reacting. And so even if I know that his words are exactly what they're going to be, what if he doesn't say them exactly the way you referenced, right? We were both referencing the orange and the banana earlier. So if that sentence or phrase doesn't change the story, but it moves it along exactly the way that the scripted words would, and the script isn't that, like, if it's not someone who needs you to be script perfect, then I need to know through understanding the story what he's said to me so that I can react. Casting is sometimes just the first gate.
Right. Yeah.
They might have to whittle it down to 5 people who they send to producers, and then producers might make a choice between 1 or 2.
Yeah, because you have to make an impression on them. They say that 1% of novels written actually make it to publishing. And that's a really, really, really small amount. That is a really low number. And the reason is because timing, like you're saying earlier, timing and luck and all of that, but how you present your work, who you talk to, what you say in that request to be seen, to be heard, and to have someone consider you is extremely important. And it might be the best novel out there in the world and never be seen, never be picked up because of the wording, perhaps, of like, how do you pitch yourself, you know? And I feel like you're saying that's a perfect word, is the gatekeeper and the first gate you have to get through. Because it's not just a matter of are you good or are you not good? It's, are you considered in the first place? Are you given a chance in the first place?
Someone has to take a chance on you.
Yeah.
At some point. And through your training and through your work and through my own direct efforts. Yes, Nugget. Through my own direct efforts are how I'm getting the roles that I have now. I don't have an agent right now.
Right.
So everything that I get is something that I've pursued. When I've pursued something, if it's the would you like more cream in your coffee, sir? Even that role on a television program on network TV could get a few thousand submissions. That casting director might get a few thousand submissions.
Right.
Within the matter of the first couple of hours of posting that role. And so when you're looking through your Rolodex of people, who are you likely to call? Ones that you trust, ones that you've seen recently. Oh, I met that person. They did some good work last week. Let me give them an opportunity. Or I would like them to get this opportunity, whatever the wording might be. And then there's going to be all of those other people who never hear anything.
Yeah.
So rejection is huge.
Yeah.
There's no everywhere.
Right.
In this business. So even getting the audition is a win. I mean, you have to be prepared. I'm not trying to tell someone don't hire me for an acting role, but someone would have to take a super leap of faith to put me in the lead role of a feature-length film. That's a lot of work that I'm not familiar with at this stage in my training and career. I haven't even had an opportunity to consider that.
Yeah.
I need to get an agent so that an agent can trust my work, an agent can help pitch me to a casting director so I can get the role. Would you like more cream in your coffee, sir? And all of this acting training that I've done, did I really apply it to say a line like that? It's an occupational role. Thousands of people say that every minute of every day. But that builds trust in my professionalism, doing the work. And then I get another opportunity. Maybe it's the guest star next time. Now it's 5 lines, 10 lines, 2 scenes, 3 scenes. And you keep building. maybe you get your luck.
Yeah. So I think the word trust is really, really important. I love how you explain that, because you need the agent to trust in you, and then to then recommend you to a casting director who trusts that agent and their discretion. And a key part is that you also have to trust yourself. And I love how you're being very wise and mature to say, well, I don't know if I would take on such a huge role without that buildup and having gotten to that point, or if I had enough experience yet to take on such a thing. You're not rolling it out and saying, no, absolutely not, I'm not ready. You're not showing any lack of confidence, but you are showing wisdom and just, intelligence in general, to be aware of the fact that you did swimming, I did swimming. I'm not jumping into the Olympics tomorrow, I'm not prepared. And it's just gonna hurt your career if you did just try to jump into something you're not ready for. But you have to consider the circumstances, and you have to trust yourself, you trust your ability, trust your readiness, I think. So trust, you've thrown out a lot of key words today that I really love. Trust, luck, and we talked about trauma. There are a lot of words that I just really loved in this interview. Being vulnerable, we talked about being vulnerable as an actor, but just doing an interview and talking about your experience acting and how you feel about it, what you've done, what you want to do.
Yeah, and I hope if my coaches see this, that I've said everything the way I'm supposed to say it.
I hope so too.
In my own words.
Yeah. I mean,
You too, Nugget.
Yeah, talking about your own work, when I talk about my business, I know that it makes me nervous sometimes. And I'm very confident in what I do and how I do it. And I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And it was 2011 that I first started my business. Still, when someone asks me to explain my business, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, sometimes I get very uneasy and defensive, because I think they're not going to understand. They're not going to understand what it is, or why I do it the way that I do it. So I can imagine that it's not easy for you to talk about your experience, but maybe it is. You seem cool, calm, and collected, or maybe you're just acting. That being said, thank you so much, and I hope that we get to talk lots more off camera about your experiences, and I hope that you get amazing roles that you absolutely love, and I hope you keep doing it forever.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye to everyone. Remember, words matter. Bye-bye.
Words matter. Every word on the page. Every word.
Every word.
Every
So, aren't you glad I didn't say banana?